Hello and welcome to View from a Shed. Of course today we're not actually anywhere near the shed, we're actually in a retail park. So some of the View from the Shed blogs have been humorous, some have been informative, but I think the time has come to really be serious, which is one reason why I've come to this retail park. This is a retail park in Glenrothes. It's not the region's biggest retail park, and that's partially because I don't want to get stopped by the police who are roving about basically asking people what they're doing. I don't think video blogs comes into a kind of important category. However, I think it's typical of what's happening economically. We have a home base, and we also have a Matalan, and next to me there's also a home, a kind of former MFI. Completely deserted, although it's Saturday and it is 11 o'clock. So normally this whole car park would be absolutely full, and there'd be lots of shoppers basically going in and using all the various facilities. So quite unprecedented to actually be here on a Saturday and for it to be completely deserted. In fact, I can't actually think of any period in which something like this would actually happen. Even in wartime, during World War II, shops did remain open even during a time of heavy bombing. Now, in my very first blogs I talked about nuclear war. I talked about my service in the Royal Observer Corps and our preparations for nuclear war. Nuclear war is both tangible and invisible. Atomic weapons cause great destruction, but radiation is invisible. A bit like the coronavirus, it is a silent killer. Though unlike coronavirus, we actually had dosimeters which actually enabled us to take readings, so we actually knew if radiation was in the atmosphere. We don't actually have that luxury with coronavirus. So the present situation then is slightly different. I'm also intrigued from the point of view as a filmmaker, because people will know me that a lot of my creative projects have been about fantasy, conflict, and in the case of Legend of Black Diamond, it's all about a post-apocalyptic society. Are we approaching a post-apocalyptic society? I sincerely hope not. I'm also very aware of the surrealism of it all, which almost takes me back to the 80s and nuclear war. Because although I was donning a uniform and manning a post and spending time in there preparing for a Russian attack, the reality was on my way to that post I'd be listening to Radio 1, I'd be putting stuff in the cassette player, I would stop off at a garage and buy a packet of crisps, and really nobody thought it was real, although it had the possibility of becoming real. So, with the present situation, personally, I don't actually know anybody who actually knows anybody who's actually got coronavirus. And that's very common with a lot of people I've spoken to, both in person, but also in social media outlets like Facebook. But I have people I know really well who actually work in the NHS, and they tell me about all the preparations that are taking place, and they also tell me about actually going into a coronavirus ward. So that is tangible, that is real. But there's still that element of taking on board the news and self-isolating, and as it goes on longer and longer, actually wondering to what extent it is real. I do think it is real. I think in this part of the country, Fife, for example, is not as densely populated as, say, Glasgow. I think at the moment cases are not as high, but that is not to say they won't become high. Which takes me back to the economy. I've been thinking a great deal about the equation 1/3. I don't know if it's something I read or something I saw online or something that's just come in to my mind from somewhere, but I keep thinking of this term 1/3. And I also keep thinking of Christopher Eccleston. Christopher Eccleston, the actor. Famous socialist, been very prominent about his mental health problems. And he was interviewed recently by Lorraine on Good Morning Britain. And he said that he is mentally preparing himself to get coronavirus. He thinks it's inevitable that everybody will get it. Either they will have no symptoms, the symptoms will be mild, there'll be very severe symptoms, or they will sadly die. But he's mentally training himself for that position. So I'm actually wondering, should we do something similar? Going back to the 1/3 rule, and I've been thinking to myself, why does 1/3 come into my head? Is it very possible that we should perhaps think up a rule in terms of preparing ourselves for a situation? Forewarned is forearmed. Going back to my nuclear war days, that was the motto of the ROC. So perhaps we should all adopt that motto. Forewarned is forearmed. So going back to 1/3, perhaps we should accept or prepare for the acceptance that very possibly 1/3 of all businesses will cease to exist. It may not be practical for home bases and Matalans and all kinds of businesses to reopen. Lots of small businesses may not be in a position to reopen. I'm already hearing stories of businesses that just had to shut because retail has been struggling and coronavirus has just made things more difficult. Within the film industry, those of us who make films, perhaps we should be prepared to accept that there will be 1/3 less companies, 1/3 less filmmakers, possibly 1/3 less equipment. So much of the equipment comes from the Far East. Production has been heavily disrupted. Perhaps we'll have to accept that possibly we're going to have to accept tech as it exists today and not get into a mindset whereby tech is constantly changing and evolving. Perhaps we're also going to delve into older type of tech just to get things made, because this key thing is communication. We can do communication on existing tech. We don't have to keep progressing all the time. Perhaps we have to accept that kind of reality whereby there will, for a period, evolution will stop. Technological evolution will have to stop because there just won't be the money or the possibilities for it to evolve. Mazda 3 here, which we covered in a previous blog, actually quite an old car. This one was made in 2007, but it works. The parts are cheap. Perhaps we don't have to keep constantly manufacturing new cars. Perhaps we can just do what they do in countries like Iran and have whole industries, cottage industries of people who manufacture car bits and just keep existing cars going. That might be one way from a technological point of view of how we adapt to things. But perhaps there's a lot of good things that we can do as thinkers, as creative people. We can plan, we can innovate, we can use our imaginations. Already within Glass Bullet Media, we are planning new projects. We are planning new infrastructure projects. We are planning new ways of pulling in finance. As one is locked down, sometimes the very process of being locked down is the very process that makes you take a step back and say, right, okay, that's going well, that's not going so well, let's see how we can advance on all these fronts. And I'll be quite honest with you in saying that, you know, as a filmmaker, films like The Amiga Man, Planet of the Apes have certainly inspired me. I think creatively there's also so much that is going to come out of this situation. So anyway, hopefully at some point in the future I can come back here and we can see a fully packed out car park with lots of people going into Homebase and Matalan and doing their shopping. See you soon.